Hello, and welcome back to the Honest Business podcast. If this is the first episode you are joining us on, hello and welcome. I hope this becomes your go-to business podcast that you tune into every week. And if you are someone who has been listening right from the start or has recently joined us and you are an avid listener, welcome back and thank you for tuning in every week. I appreciate you. Today is going to be a good episode. We are going to talk about a type of service that you can deliver, which I get a lot of questions about and can massively change your business and can be a really beautiful thing to add into your business. So, this can be something that is fantastic if you want to add another revenue stream into your business. Maybe you want to add another six-figure revenue stream into your business. Maybe you want to change up how you work. Maybe you're feeling bored with how you work. Maybe things in your life have changed and therefore how you deliver your work and package that up needs to change. There are a whole load of kind of reasons and ways that what I'm about to discuss with you would be relevant and useful for you. But we are talking today about VIP days. We could call them, I don't know, it's kind of hard to to give them any other name other than that. For some people it might be strategy days, it can be a day rate, although I really wouldn't say that a VIP day is a day rate, but we're essentially talking about a piece of work that revolves around one day. And this is really going to be relevant for anybody who is a service provider. So maybe you're a coach, maybe you're a designer, maybe you're a consultant, maybe you are some sort of training organization, a copywriter, any kind of designer, a strategist, even agencies this can work well for. But you are typically someone who is providing a service of some kind. You can actually make this work for other types of businesses, but typically we're going to talk, and from the perspective today, of sort of service-based entrepreneurs. And I know there's many of you who listen, so hello and welcome. Right, we have got a lot of pointers to get through in this episode. It might be a long one. I'm going to try and keep it as short and sweet as possible. So, VIP days, what are they? Well, a VIP day is a day of work. So essentially someone is going to come and pay you for a day of work, and it needs to be a lengthy amount. So for me, in my head, it's sort of a minimum 3 hours, but I would potentially call that a half day. Like, we have half day things in the business, but you kind of at least 3 hours up to, sort of 8 hours, could be longer, of work that someone is working with you for. I would typically say a VIP day is typically a one-on-one experience. So it might be you going into a business and there might be other people that you're speaking with, but it's like one client and you coming together to do a piece of work. What a VIP day is great at doing is often you can do a really concentrated piece of work in a short space of time. So instead of doing something you might have done over a month period with someone, or 3 month or 6 month period, you can do it in one day together of kind of fully focused. Intention is just set on like focusing on one thing. How you go about creating one is something that I'm going to talk through in this episode, and something that I think is very interesting because you have lots of different options. There is multiple, like unlimited different combinations, ways that you can build them and run them and hold them, and there's definitely different ways to do things. And also, let's talk about when you add them into your business, because I suppose that's also a thing people toss and turn over. So how you create one is ultimately you decide what you want something to be, how you want to run it, and you just sell it as that. But I'm going to go into sort of pointers throughout this episode that will give you ways of looking at different things. In terms of when do you add a VIP day into your business, you could off the bat just offer them, which can be great if you're someone who maybe is side hustling and therefore you need to work on a specific day on a specific client. Or this might be something you add into your business really a long time down the line. So there's no right or wrong with this, as with everything in business. Some of you, this will be relevant for you to do straight away, and others, this will be something that maybe you've been in business for 10 years or 20 years, and you're now like, actually, I'm going to do something a little bit different, and actually this fits with the constraints of my life, and then I'm going to bring it in. So there's no kind of right or wrong in terms of when to add it into your business. I would say that if you're actively selling something and you've got a product suite in your business and that things are going well, be very mindful about what the addition of it is going to do for when people are looking at your product suite as a whole and then making a purchasing/buying decision off you, because that does impact. And I do spend sometimes looking at people and saying, actually, X, Y, and Z doesn't really fit as the system you've got right now going on. But for most people, you will be able to add it into your business without too much of an issue. Who are they good for? So having a VIP day in your business is, as an offering, as a service offering, is really good for, as I mentioned before, people who are side hustling. So if you are someone who maybe you work Monday to Thursday, Monday to Friday, and then your day for working on your business is a Saturday, maybe it would be fabulous if you already do all your client work on a Saturday, then having a VIP day available where someone can buy your time for that Saturday can work really, really well, rather than someone who's expecting you to be available, at 3 or 4 different points during the week. Especially, for example, if you're like a copywriter, for example, or a website developer or something like that, that can work really nicely. It also is really beneficial for people who work really fast. So if you're an entrepreneur who is like very fast paced and is able to just like bash out pieces of work, like even if you book a project, like I know I've had clients who they'll book a project and they have 6 months for a project, but they actually execute it in one day. Usually towards the end of that project day is when that work gets done. Therefore, if that is you, this can work really, really nicely for. If you have family commitments, this can also work great, because if you're someone who's like, actually, I only get a certain amount of time to be able to do my business, this can work really phenomenally well for you. What I would say it doesn't work for is if you're someone who likes to have a very long working period, or you like to come back to things. Like maybe you do a piece of work and then you reflect on it and then you change it a lot. Or maybe it's like you need that kind of breath to just be. You don't work well under pressure. If you don't work well under pressure, this might not be the best situation for you. Sorry if you're listening, I am blowing my nose. But for some people, these are fantastic sort of ways of working that can really fuel and energize people. One thing I would say when you're starting to think about how do you create a VIP day is that you really need to understand what the outcome is of the VIP day before you build anything else, in my opinion. So you really need to understand what is the promise, or what are you giving them, or what is the outcome of somebody purchasing time with you. That has to be really clear. What is the transformation? Ideally, for the best VIP days, we want a transformation. We want someone to enter at one point at the start of the day and leave at the end of the day with some kind of transformation, whether that's within themselves, whether it's their business, whether it's something physically, whether they have something that they didn't have at the beginning of the day. But they need to understand, like, what is the promise that you're given? So, example, if you're a website designer, it might be they come at the start of the day without a website and they leave with a new website. If you're a brand designer, it's they've had a rebrand. Maybe if you are a therapist, it's that at the end of the day, they've got a whole new understanding of who they are as a person and understanding of what they do. If you are a business strategist, it's that they come out with a day with a clear 12-month plan. There is many different things. Like, let's just think, if you're a fitness coach, they leave at the end of the day understanding how to use every piece of equipment in the gym, and they have a nutrition plan to suit them, and they've had all their worries and their queries dealt with. Like, you really need to have some kind of transformation that they understand that they're getting at the end of it. And that can be physical, or it can be, it doesn't have to be physical. Once you have that clear, that will make it a lot easier for you to build out what it's gonna look like. So in order to make a VIP day as best as possible, the design and the planning is some of the most critical pieces, because this isn't a case of people just like buy a day of your time and you get on and you're like, what do you want to do today? That's not how a very good VIP day runs. A very good VIP day runs with a clear structure. They don't necessarily need to know the structure, depends, some will, some won't, but you have a clear structure. So first of all, you're going to work out what type of VIP day are you holding? Like, what does VIP day mean to you? So for example, for mine, if someone comes and works with me for a day, I am physically with them, either virtually or in person, pretty much for the whole length of the day. We're together. But that doesn't have to be how a VIP day runs. So, for example, some people might have, particularly if you're a designer or a copywriter or something where you're physically doing something and producing something, you might have a call at the beginning of the day with the client to kick off the day. You might then go away and you're working on it and they are doing whatever they want to do and they don't need the time to be present, they meant at lunchtime you might check in with them, and then you might do an afternoon of work, and then at the end of the day you might check in with them, and they might have 3 calls that are half an hour each or an hour each that you are kind of communicating in that time. It might be that you don't actually have a call at all. It might just be that they are securing time for you to do a piece of work on a specific day. So let's just say, I don't know, maybe I'm trying to think of some random examples, but I'm not very good at coming up with random examples. Let's just say you are someone who is like a HR training manual writer. You're someone who comes up with HR policies and you help sort of solidify that and make sure that it's really clear for people. You might literally just spend the whole day doing that, and there might not be any point where you have to get involved with them. I think for most people, and I would argue that some of the best VIP days will have some kind of touch point. So whether that's at the start of the day or the end of the day or both, some kind of touch point is usually really helpful as like a bookend kind of start and end to your day. But it doesn't have to be. And you can be really creative in how you hold space for people and what that actually looks like. The other thing to think about is how is the time going to be used? So, like, literally lay out every single hour of the time that you're outlining for your VIP day and what is going to happen in each of those moments. That is really important to do. VIP days can be in person or they can be virtual, and you can run both. And again, that's something you need to decide. So, are they going to be in person? Are they going to be virtual? Can you do the same thing from that? Can the outcomes be the same? Do they have to be tweaked? The other thing I want you to then think about is, what do you want the investment to be? What do you want the quality to be? So you can have VIP days that are all sorts of different things. You can have a VIP day that is literally just your kind of time is the thing that has been the commodity and that people have been able to buy your undivided attention for the whole day. Some people have VIP day experiences that are literally very VIP experiences that are, you know, singing or dancing or huge. For example, CEO Strategy Day that we offer is a high investment, but it becomes the whole 24-hour retreat experience, and they have a whole, but it's one-on-one. So it's like a retreat experience, but in a one-on-one capacity, and that's a big thing. You know, they can go for tasting menu and they get their hotel included, and like that is a whole big, that's like one end of the spectrum of the far end of like how big do you want to go with it. And I don't mean in price though. I mean prices for VIP days can literally be, people will charge like £100,000 for VIP day. I'm not suggesting that you charge that. You can charge, you know, £1,000. I would say, I'm going to come on to pricing, but I would say it needs to be at least £1,000. But that's a separate conversation. But then you've got the other side of something that it doesn't have to be like this whole singing or dancing thing. So you need to decide on what is the investment and what is the quality level that you want it to be. What do you actually want to provide as a service? And then when it comes to pricing, people really struggle with pricing VIP days. Often people really underprice them. And I really want to give you some pointers on this. So you need to look at this idea that if someone is spending a day with you and you're giving them your undivided attention, that is what it is. They need to pay a price for that, okay? That needs to be something that is valued, because it is like you can't jump into other projects, you can't sort of be chatting with so and so and this thing and that thing. Like, that is not how a VIP day runs. Therefore, the pricing needs to be a premium price, in my opinion, because people who are prepared to pay for speed, which is what they're getting if they're having your undivided attention, therefore will understand that comes at a cost. So be very clear in your pricing and do not undercharge, because if you undercharge for VIP days, you will hate doing them. And I have seen this happen with multiple clients where if you charge too much, you won't sell them, which is fine. You need to, you can find a price that works. If you charge too little, you despise them, you find them horrendous, and you really dread them. But if you get into that sweet spot in the middle, it can be a really beautiful experience for all parties involved, and it can be really freeing in your business. But don't forget that they are buying a kind of almost a fast pass. They're buying a kind of skipping time process of spending a concentrated amount of time with you, and they need to pay for that. I would also argue that a VIP day, as I mentioned earlier, needs to be at least £1,000. It needs to be at least a 4-figure investment, in my opinion. You obviously can charge whatever you want. I'm not here to say that anybody should do anything. But if you want my perspective on it, it needs to be £1,000. I mean, £1,000 I even think's too low. So for most people, it's going to be more than that. Mainly based on you're not pricing on the time that you're spending, you're pricing on the outcome and the transformation. That's why I said at the beginning, the outcome and the transformation needs to be big. Or it doesn't have to be big, but it needs to be significant, it needs to be useful, it needs to be substantial. So it's not, you're not basing it on we spend 8 hours together, or we spend 6 hours together, or we spend 5 hours together, and therefore my hourly rate is X, so then I'm going to times it by the amount of hours, and that's my rate. That is not what you're doing with this pricing, in my opinion. You need to really look at value pricing. You need to really think about what is a fair exchange of time, of mind. And also you need to think about what goes into it before that, which we haven't kind of got to yet. But there is a whole set of time that is going to come before and after that you also need to account for. When it comes to, you've got this rough idea, okay? You've got an idea of what the outcome's going to be. You've got an idea about what the day is going to run like. You've got the idea if it's in person or it's virtual. You're kind of thinking about how this is all coming together. I then want you to think about, is this realistic for me to be able to deliver? Because sometimes people will design amazing VIP days, but the reality of it is it's exhausting and they're going to try and do too much. Now, I would say that a VIP typically, a day is going to be intense. It's going to be heavy going because that's what people are paying for. They're paying for a transformation that's going to take them so little time. But make sure that you can actually do what it is that you're trying to set out to and not feel like you're going to be constantly burning yourself out after every one. Some things to note: you need a really solid contract with VIP days because there is lots of intricacies, there's lots of things you need to think about. Really make sure that you put in detail specifics. So for example, if they're going to change the date, can the client change the date? If they're going to change the date, is there going to be a fee? I'd highly suggest you say that there is a fee involved if you want to change the date. Being really clear on what the T's and C's are is important. What's included? If it's in person, is the travel included? Is there food included? What are you liable for? What are you not liable for? The other thing for you to think about is pre-work. What pre-work are you going to get people to do? I would say in 95% of cases for VIP days, pre-work is really important. So getting people to complete something ahead of time that you can then review or see or know about can massively help you to provide a transformation. So the pre-work can be a form they complete. It can be something they submit to you. It's something that they send. It could be voice note. It could be an email. You get to decide what the pre-work is. But think about, what is the pre-work someone needs to do before they then come and spend the day with you in order to get that outcome and transformation that you identified at the beginning that you wanted to create. And so you really set that up for yourself, yeah? You're like, okay, yeah, actually, they need to have gotten to this point in their journey in order for the stuff I'm going to do with them when we meet for the day, for that to work out. So think about what pre-work is going to be involved. You also then want to think about what work's involved afterwards. Now, I'd really try and encourage you to make sure that at the point in which the VIP day comes to an end, you're pretty much done. There's not loads of other stuff. But some of you will have things like deliverables that you might want to deliver a week after. So for example, people who do VIP day stuff with us, I'm writing them a massive strategy. If they come and do a CEO strategy day, I'm writing them a strategy document. They've got loads of different things in it. I need time to go through it. That's not going to be done in the time that we spend together. The time we spend together for that example is actually just the initial piece, and then I go away and write a whole set of things. That's why I was saying when I was saying at the end of the spectrum that that's a real kind of extreme. So therefore there's a deliverable afterwards. If you're someone like a brand designer or a website designer or someone who is delivering something, ideally give them it by the end of that day. Incorporate enough time so that you can export everything you need to export or put anything together that you need to, so that by the end of the day your work's pretty much done. Because what you don't want to happen is you don't want to do a VIP day, but then you have a whole other day essentially worth of work to do afterwards and not be compensated for that. That's why my CEO strategy day is the price that it is for many different reasons, but one of them is to incorporate the amount of work that goes into it afterwards. But what I'm suggesting is that that is not really a solution if you want a not very expensive product. You want something that a lot of people can purchase, that makes sure that whatever the transformation, the delivery item that you're suggesting is reasonable. You don't have to change someone's life in a day. You don't have to change their business in a day. It can be something very small and specific that someone's very happy with and very pleased with. But I'd really encourage you to try and get that the output is completed within the day. Lots of people will say, should you have a call afterwards? So, should you have some kind of checkpoint after the VIP day? Now, that is totally up to you. You can if you want. However, I would say, again, you need to be very careful that this doesn't move from being a VIP day into something else, into a consultant project, because those are two different things. So, I'd highly suggest that you actually try and finish it on that day, and that's the end of it. You can have kind of a check-in form, you could have a feedback form, you could have some kind of progress thing that's maybe delivered through them like an automated system that's an email. That is all possible for you to do. But just be really careful that you don't add on so much stuff that your one day that you're getting paid for ends up being actually way more work and actually isn't very profitable at all. I hope this is kind of getting the juices going for some of you. Some of you might be quite excited. You might be like, oh, this is really fun. Like, I'm really kind of vibing. I see how this could fit into my business. If you are sat there thinking, I don't actually see this fitting, or this sounds awful, that's totally fine. Sometimes a VIP day is not for everyone. I have had clients who've tested them, who have tried them. Some people have really loved them and others have really not gotten on well. And I always encourage people to kind of do a few, because your first one, you're never going to know whether you really love it or not. But I do encourage people to kind of give it 3 or 4 goes. And some clients have come back and said, you know what, I don't actually like this. It doesn't fit with how I work, or this isn't feeling good to me. And they kind of struggle. The one thing I would say, though, as an interesting observation for anybody who's intrigued, and then I think is a really interesting thing, is that pretty much every single person who's tried them, even if they say, I don't want to do this going forward, it's not going to fit into my business, what they do say is that they have seen phenomenal changes in how much more efficient they can be with their work, and how much better they can be at actually getting real consolidated progress and movement on things without it taking up weeks or months at a time. Many people who are service-based providers feel like things take ages, and actually when you do a VIP day, it can be a really nice way of seeing how much things can shift and you can get a really nice amount of work done in such a short space of time. So a lot of people, if they've decided that they're not going to continue doing VIP days, they very much incorporated that shift though into their wider work of actually realizing maybe their project that normally takes 6 weeks actually only needs to take 4 weeks, or maybe they can change up how they work. And I think that's a really fantastic learning if you do this and find out that you don't necessarily vibe with doing everything in a day. But I also want to just list off a few things of who these don't tend to work well for. And again, this is not me saying that if you are this or your ideal clients are this, that you shouldn't do them. I would suggest trying them, but this is where I've seen where some things don't really work. So if you are serving customers who are really budget conscious, this often is not the solution for them, because often we're saying it's a one-on-one experience, we're saying that it's a premium product, we're saying that they're buying like the convenience of time. So often a VIP day is not for people who are really budget conscious. It can be, and you can definitely make it that, but I would say in order to benefit your business, you're probably not really targeting it to that category of people you could serve. The other thing that can cause issues is time zones. So if you are someone who works with people from a different country, sometimes VIP days don't work based on the whole idea that, you know, if you're working with someone for 8 hours, their time zone, your time zone is going to be different. There's definitely ways around that. So it's not that you can't do them, it's just be mindful that that can be an issue. The other thing I would think about is if you're creating something where people need time to think and like space to breathe on things. So I know graphic designers some people feel that, you know, people can't make solid decisions on a brand. You might present them 2 brands and they're like, I don't know, I need to think about this. And they want a week to think about it. And you're on the VIP day thinking, I need an answer in 5 minutes. that can be tricky. If you are, if you're appealing, if a lot of your clients tend to need lots of thinking time or they struggle with decision making, sometimes a VIP day can be really tricky. And again, I don't think it's an impossible thing to get around, but it's something for you to really think about. The other thing is, we mentioned before, is how you work. So if you like to have a lot of thinking time, or if you are someone who doesn't like to feel rushed, sometimes a VIP day is not going to be the right thing for you. I also want to touch on what VIP days can do for your business, because it's really underestimated sometimes. So having a VIP day in your business can add a lot of freedom, it can add a lot of excitement, it can really make things feel fresh. It can often kind of inspire you because it's a bit of a different way of doing your day-to-day living. It might be that you wake up earlier, it might be that you're going to a different location, you might have to travel somewhere. It can be quite a fun way of breathing life into your business and working with people in a really meaningful way, but in a quite a nice trade-off. Yeah, like the person gets a transformation, the person feels really nice and they've made some progress, but you can also feel like, I've made some money, I've made good money, I have done really good work in the world, but it's also over and it's done. And for some people, if you get overwhelmed really easily and you feel the weight heavy of like having to hold loads of clients at any one time, this can be really freeing for you to just be like, okay, that piece of work's done now, and we move on to the next thing. And I really don't like disengage with how meaningful that can be, because it's really nice. You don't need to feel guilty about that. It's just a really lovely thing. We adding VIP days into my business has really been a positive thing. I have gone through phases of doing more of them than others. Like last year, for example, we didn't do many. My life moved in a certain direction, which meant that I couldn't travel or I had to be at home, or actually just for various reasons, certain things meant that it did or didn't make sense for me to do them. This year, I'm actually quite looking forward to doing some more sort of shorter term consultant stuff, which kind of fits into a VIP day. Some of them do and some of them don't. We kind of have a VIP half day as well, which is quite nice. But we've really built out a few offerings based on the model of a VIP day, but have kind of tweaked them and changed them depending on where people are and what they need. But it is a lovely addition to your business. It can really help with adding another revenue stream that doesn't feel like it's taken up so much of your time. It can be a really good use of time, but to increase profit margin well. Now, whilst we're talking about profit margin, this is something we really need to think about. So, when you are pricing, you must build profit into your pricing. That's just full stop across the board, business wise. You need to do that. However, on a VIP day, it's really easy for your profit margin to be reduced very quickly. And what I mean by that is, especially if you're in person. So in person, the costs can get really heavy, really high. If you are someone who is a luxury brand and you have a real luxury way of doing business and service, that also can drain your profit margin massively. VIP days can be one of the most profitable things in your business, especially if they're virtual, but they can also be one of the lowest profitable things in your business. And the different types of VIP days we have in my business, some of them are more profitable than others. And some of them are really like the least profitable thing in the business that we run. So you've really got to think about, where do you want that to be in amongst your product suite, and where does it sit and who is it for? But make sure you watch your profit margin, that you don't end up working and doing really good, amazing work and probably being really tired and exhausted afterwards because you're exerting yourself for a whole day, and then realizing that your profit margin's really low, because you don't really want to get into that territory. For some businesses, it will work depending on what the next steps are from the VIP day. But for most people, you want to make sure that your profit margin is of a nice, healthy amount in order for you to feel like it was a real good transaction that you've just experienced. So we might now have a VIP day. You might have an offering. You've got a clear, defined outcome that you want for people. You've got this lovely structure set up. You've built all of your back end stuff in terms of, workflows or anything that you need in order to make this all happen. Then you have to market and sell your VIP day. And that's where people panic and they don't really sell it. And it kind of just sits there in their product suite, and nothing really happens to it. And actually, I think many of us are guilty of this. A lot of people will sell VIP days behind the scenes rather than publicly selling them. So a lot of people will, someone will come to them and say, I really want to work with you. And actually, it's one of the first things a lot of people will say, oh, why don't you do a VIP day? But you can actually do some amazing stuff around marketing them and actually selling them consistently. The main thing comes down to the crux of any good marketing strategy. So go back to what your marketing strategies are for promoting and selling your other offers. Look at what works and really understand why do they work and get on that. But I'm not going to sit and explain now like a whole marketing strategy for your VIP days. If that's something you want, feel free to let me know and I'm more than happy to go into that. But really thinking about what do people need to hear in order to be able to understand what a VIP day is, understand what the transaction is of it, understand what they're going to get from it. That's what you need to portray as a conversation in order for people to buy from you. Don't overcomplicate how you market a VIP day. It doesn't need to be complicated. The best marketing for VIP days is done when it's very clear on what they get. Very clear on what they get, very clear on why they're doing it, and very clear on who it is for. The clearer you can get on who it's for, the easier the rest of it comes, because people get really interested. If it's in person, really market the fact that it's in person and utilize the benefits that brings, because a lot of people love in-person stuff. If you're virtual, explain why is it that working together for a day like this is more effective or beneficial for them versus whatever else they're thinking about doing. And it's not that you have to trade off your services and say, well, this is really good and this is really bad. It's just about giving people options and helping people understand why it is that they would choose to look at something versus something else. The question I sometimes get asked, and it's a really interesting question, is can you run your whole business model on VIP days? The answer to that is 100% yes, you can. Some people love these days, and some people get so into them that they're like, do you know what? That's what I want to do. I just want to have, 3 of them a month. Because this is the other thing, like, it can be very profitable in the sense of you can literally reduce your workload massively by saying you're just going to have 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 or like however many you want to do in a month, and that be how your business runs. So it can be very freedom based, this stuff. If that appeals to you, yes, 100% you can run your business model exclusively through VIP days. The only thing I would say is that most of the time that's going to mean that you have not got reoccurring revenue built into your business, which I don't like. I love for people to have reoccurring revenue as a key feature. Now, yes, you can have payment plans for your VIP days, which would then sort of give you some level of reoccurring revenue. But what I would be saying is I would not be offering VIP days with 6-month payment plans. So even if you build some reoccurring revenue, it's going to be very short term. So I would suggest that you do not have an exclusively just VIP day business model. I don't particularly think it's the best thing to do. I would suggest that you could have it as one of your main income drivers, but I would still suggest that you want something sat underneath it to encourage reoccurring revenue into your business. But for some people, there's various reasons as to why they would only be able to have VIP days. Maybe you're chronically ill and actually you can only work sort of a few days a month and that would really work for you, then go for it. But if we're talking about ideal situation, what's the best port of call, I would really suggest you don't just have VIP days exclusively, but just have 1 or 2 offerings as well. It doesn't need to be 10 offerings, but just have something else that is a more longer term that has some kind of retainer or it doesn't have to be retainer, but recurring revenue model built into it. And then in terms of what else have we got to talk about and touch on, I'm sure some of you might have some questions you're kind of slightly thinking, I hope you talked about this, or what about this, or what about that? So if there are any follow-up questions to this, please let me know and I can do almost like a Q&A episode on VIP days. But I wanted to leave the episode on talking about transformation that is for you in your business, okay? So it is really possible to really change the trajectory of your business using VIP days. There are some people who have found this to be such an escapism and such a joy and has helped them fall in love with their work again. And I don't want that to go unnoticed. So if you are someone who wants a new challenge and maybe you know that actually you are prepared to grow your revenue, but you don't need to create this whole new business, but you could add something else in, I would urge you to have a think about what does a VIP day look like for you and how does it benefit you? because that needs to be top of mind, and then look at how does it benefit the business. And test them. Please come and let me know if you're someone who's going to try this and you've tested them and you love them, because I think it's really important that in 2024 and beyond that we start looking at what is going to benefit us as business owners, as the person who set a business up in the first place, to have freedom or to live a certain life. One, are you doing that? But two, how can you do that and enjoy the work you're doing? And for a lot of people, VIP days can be a beautiful way of adding something into your business that is a new revenue stream, but that is a really nice and joyful one. And if through this episode you've realised that VIP days aren't for you, then I feel like that's a really solid use of your time today, of really figuring out, actually, I don't need to focus my time on this right now because it's maybe not the right thing for me. But as always, I'd really encourage experimentation. I'd really encourage you to try things and to test things and to tweak things, because that is where you're going to learn the most and have the most kind of progress in that area. Take care. Have a lovely, lovely rest of your day. I will do some more episodes maybe around different types of service offerings you could add into your business, because I think it's something that not a lot of people think about beyond the obvious ones. But yes, take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Feel free to go and have a binge of the other episodes that are in the back catalogue if you wish to. I will be back next week. Take care. Feel free to catch up with me over on Instagram as well. Bye. Take care.